The phone rang while I was still in bed, the early light slicing across the room in hard lines. I didn't recognize the number. When I answered, a calm, clipped voice said, "We need to talk about your monthly payments." I froze. Payments. $300 every month. For years, I'd thought I was helping her. Her mother, Anne, my wife Mary Ann, had died 10 years ago. The grief had hollowed me, and sending that money felt like a lifeline, like a tether to the family I still loved through her. "Anne," I said, my voice tighter than I realized. "Not exactly," the voice said. No warmth, no hesitation. "You've been sending money to the wrong account." I laughed nervously, thinking it was a bad joke. "Wrong account? I've been sending it to her mother's account. Every month." The line went silent for a moment. Then, "She never saw a dime." Something inside me snapped. My chest tightened, and my hands trembled as I gripped the sheets. How could she never have gotten it? How could someone be taking it without me knowing? The thought was too sharp, slicing through the residue of 10 years of carefully managed grief. I stood, pacing the room. The light shifted across the walls, highlighting dust motes in the air. The ordinary brutality of mourning, and beneath it all, a slow, sinking realization. Someone had been watching me, calculating my grief, siphoning it for years. I called Anne. Her number rang, then went to voicemail. I left a message, but her calm, everyday voice didn't answer. The absence of response was deafening. I opened my laptop and traced every transfer, every notification, every little confirmation I'd ignored over the years. Patterns emerged, small, almost invisible, but intentional. There was a new name on some statements, a minor spelling difference in the account number, a quiet, steady theft. A sense of violation settled over me, cold and clinical. Someone had exploited my grief. Someone had played on my silence. Every memory of sending that money, the relief, the sense of duty, the fleeting hope, now felt poisoned. Then I saw it. The signature line on a form I had never signed, linking my payments to someone else entirely. Someone I didn't know. Someone who had let me believe I was helping Anne. The room seemed smaller, the walls closer. My mind raced, calculating the years of trust, the years of loss, and the invisible enemy who had been inside my life all along. And in that moment, I realized that the truth I thought I knew about generosity, about family, about love, was a lie meticulously curated to keep me silent. The line between grief and guilt blurred, and I knew I had to find out who had done this. But I had no idea that the person closest to me would be the one hiding in plain sight. I started small, calling the bank, requesting every record for the last decade. Each month, $300. Consistent, almost religious. But the destination always slightly off. Every check, every electronic transfer, subtly altered, pointing to a shadow I couldn't yet name. I went to Anne's house under the pretense of visiting, though I hadn't been in years. She greeted me with that faint, polite smile she always had, the one that never quite reached her eyes. I thought I would see shock, grief, maybe even confusion, but nothing. Only calm, careful hospitality. "I thought you were coming for Thanksgiving," she said, leading me to the living room. Her words were measured, smooth. "Anne, the money," I started. My hands were clammy, my voice low. "Did you ever get the money I sent?" She paused, her eyes flicking somewhere beyond me, distant, calculating. "I didn't need it," she said softly. Then, almost as an afterthought, "Mary Ann wouldn't have wanted me to accept it." I felt the edges of panic creep in. Her calmness wasn't comfort, it was armor. Beneath it, I sensed calculation. Someone was hiding. But who? I left quickly, and that night, I called the bank again, pressing for names, account addresses, connections. That's when the first red flag appeared. A familiar name, one I had trusted implicitly. A name tied to Mary Ann herself, though she had been dead for 10 years. I felt my stomach twist. Had someone been impersonating her? Forging signatures? Exploiting my grief? The possibility made me sick, but I couldn't stop. Each lead I followed pulled me deeper into a quiet labyrinth of deception. Neighbors, distant relatives, even friends from Mary Ann's old circle, I questioned them subtly, watching, observing. One small detail repeated. A person often overlooked. Someone who never spoke, never intervened, but always noticed. A caretaker of minor tasks who moved through Anne's life like a shadow, keeping silent but always present. I realized that silence had a pattern, and patterns always point to someone. Late at night, I lay awake imagining the last decade, imagining every interaction, every phone call, every email. It was too perfect, too seamless. Someone had been orchestrating this without ever needing to raise a hand. And the calmest person in the room, the one I would never suspect, was probably the one who knew everything. The next day, I returned to Anne's, ostensibly to drop off some papers. But I had a new resolve. I would watch her house, watch the patterns. And then I saw it through a window I hadn't noticed, before a figure moving with deliberate care, counting envelopes, checking lists. My heart sank. The truth was closer than I imagined. And yet, just as I thought I could confront them, the figure vanished, leaving only questions. I didn't confront anyone. Not yet. Truth needs patience, not noise. I started by doing what I should have done years ago, nothing visible. I kept sending the $300. Same date, same amount, same silence. Whoever had been receiving it expected consistency. Breaking that rhythm would expose me. Instead, I watched. Anne's house became a quiet map of habits. Tuesdays, a car parked too long. Thursdays, envelopes leaving with the trash. And always there, moving without urgency, was Helen. The woman everyone ignored. Not family, not staff, just help. She cleaned. She organized paperwork. She spoke only when spoken to. She never asked questions. People like that survive by being useful, not seen. I began noticing details I'd missed for years. Helen correcting Anne gently when she forgot something. Helen answering phone calls Anne pretended not to hear. Helen handling mail with practiced familiarity, control disguised as assistance. The bank finally released more records. The account receiving my money wasn't Anne's. It belonged to a shell trust, one that fed into several others. Clean, legal, designed to disappear inside bureaucracy. The trustee's name appeared only once, buried in a scanned document. Helen Carter. I felt something colder than anger. Respect. Whoever built this didn't steal impulsively. They built a system that assumed I would never ask questions. Because grief is predictable. Because silence is easier than doubt. I confronted Anne not with accusations, but with absence. I stopped calling, stopped visiting. Within weeks, she called me. "You've changed," she said. "I'm tired," I replied. There was a pause. Not concern, calculation. Then came the pressure, subtle at first. A letter from a lawyer about estate matters. A reminder about Marianne's wishes. Moral language. Soft threats. The kind that don't leave fingerprints. Helen never spoke. She watched me when she thought I wasn't looking. Her eyes didn't challenge me. They measured me, like a risk assessment. I realized then that Helen wasn't acting for Anne. Anne was the cover. The real antagonist wasn't personal. It was procedural. Paperwork. Trusts. The belief that people like me, stable, grieving, polite, would rather lose money than confront the dead. So I did the opposite. I hired a forensic accountant, quietly. I didn't tell him why. Just asked him to follow the money and wait. 3 months later, he handed me a folder. Inside were timelines, transfers, and one undeniable conclusion. Helen had started redirecting the funds 6 months after Marianne's death. Not for survival, for accumulation. She had done this before. Different families, different losses. Always quietly. I thought that was the end. Evidence is power. Truth always wins. I was wrong. Because the next morning, my bank account was frozen. And waiting in my inbox was a legal notice accusing me of financial misconduct against Anne. Helen had moved first. The accusation was elegant. It claimed I had exploited Anne's grief, that the monthly payments were coerced, manipulative, designed to establish control. There were affidavits, statements, language, polished by professionals who knew how to weaponize morality. Anne signed nothing. Helen had. I understood then. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about credibility. Whoever spoke first would define the story. Friends stopped calling. A colleague asked me, gently, if everything was okay. The bank wouldn't explain anything beyond pending review. The system I trusted was now neutral at best, hostile at worst. Helen remained invisible. No threats, no confrontation, just process. The accountant advised caution. You're right, he said, but being right doesn't protect you. That night, I went through Marianne's old things. Not for clues, just grounding. I found a notebook I hadn't opened in years. Inside were small notes, lists, observations. Helen's name appeared once. She watches everything, Marianne had written. Never asks. Knows more than she should. That line undid me. I realized the truth hadn't arrived suddenly. I had ignored it for years because it was quieter than grief. The accountant prepared a report. Instead of confronting Helen or Anne, we sent it anonymously to the Trust Oversight Board. Not accusations, just documentation, timelines, patterns. Let the system turn on itself. Weeks passed. Then, quietly, Anne's lawyer withdrew. The bank unfroze my account without apology. Helen stopped coming to the house. No explanation was ever given. I received one final letter. Not from Anne, from Helen. It contained no threats, no remorse. Only a single sentence, "You were never supposed to notice." That was the last communication I ever received from her. Anne and I never spoke again. I stopped the payments not because I was angry, but because the meaning had changed. What once felt like love had become maintenance of a lie. Letting go felt like betrayal. It also felt necessary. The Oversight Board never contacted me. Institutions rarely thank people for exposing inconvenient truths. Helen disappeared into another system, another silence. I know she didn't lose everything. People like her never do. What I lost was simpler. The belief that good intentions protect you. The comfort of thinking silence equals dignity. The illusion that grief makes people kinder. What remained was clarity. Marianne didn't need my money sent into darkness. She needed me to live honestly, even if that meant questioning the stories built around her absence. Now, every month, when the date passes, I notice it. The space where the transaction used to be. The absence feels heavier than the money ever did, but it's clean. Some truths don't arrive with justice. They arrive with stillness. And sometimes, the cost of finally seeing is realizing how long you chose not to look. If this story left you questioning who we really trust, or wondering how far someone might go behind a smile, hit like and subscribe to uncover more real-life tales of secrets, betrayal, and quiet truths. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done if you were in his shoes? And remember, sometimes silence speaks louder than money, and the truth is always waiting for someone brave enough to notice.